Imagine meeting someone from a completely different cultural background. Maybe they greet you differently, stand closer or farther away than you expect, or communicate with more or less directness than you're used to. Moments like these can feel awkward or confusing, but the root of that confusion isn't always the other person's behavior. Many times the confusion comes from our own sense of self and identity interacting with theirs. Intercultural communication is not just about learning other cultures. It's also about understanding who we are. Today, I'm going to explain two major concepts from the early chapters of our textbook: the components of the self and how identity develops across cultures. Understanding these concepts helps us communicate more effectively in a diverse world. The first major concept is the self. In intercultural communication, the self is not just a personal idea, it's a cultural one. The self includes self-awareness, self-concept, and self-esteem, and each of these plays a role in how we interpret interactions with other people. Self-awareness is our ability to observe our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in real time. It includes being aware of how our culture taught us to communicate, how to use eye contact, how loudly we speak, what emotions we show, and even how we interpret politeness. According to our textbook, self-awareness is essential in intercultural communication because it helps us notice the cultural lenses we are using. Without self-awareness, we assume that our way of communicating is the natural way, when in reality it's simply the way we were raised. For example, in some cultures, interrupting shows enthusiasm and engagement. In others, interrupting is disrespectful. A person with high self-awareness can pause and think, maybe my reaction is cultural, which helps prevent misunderstandings. Self-concept refers to the beliefs we have about who we are. Some parts of our self-concept feel natural, but many of them are shaped by family, community, and cultural expectations. For instance, someone raised in a collectivist culture might describe themselves in terms of family roles, while someone from an individualistic culture might focus on personal traits. Self-esteem is how positively or negatively we evaluate those beliefs. Research shows that self-esteem affects our confidence in unfamiliar cultural settings. People with stronger self-esteem tend to be more open to cross-cultural experiences because they trust themselves to manage potential discomfort or misunderstandings. This means that how we see ourselves influences whether we reach out or hold back when interacting with someone from a different cultural background. Now let's move into identity, which includes personal identity, social identity, and cultural identity. These categories help us understand why we communicate the way we do and why others communicate differently. Personal identity includes individual characteristics, your personality, interest, or personal values. Social identity includes group memberships, like being a college student, an athlete, a parent, or a member of a particular organization. Cultural identity includes the deeper frameworks shaped by ethnicity, nationality, religion, gender, or traditions. These identities guide our communication choices. For example, someone with a strong cultural identity connected to formality may use polite titles and structured greetings, while someone with a more casual identity may prefer first names and relaxed conversation. Neither is right or wrong. They simply reflect differing identity-based norms. Identity is not a fixed or completed thing. It changes throughout our lives. This is especially true in multicultural environments. People often shift how they express their identities depending on the situation. A bilingual speaker, for example, might communicate differently with family than with classmates because different cultural identities become active in each setting. Here's a quote from our textbook that captures this idea perfectly. We must avoid the temptation to think of our identities as constant. Our identities aren't something we achieve or complete. This means identity is a lifelong evolving process. It changes as we learn new things, enter new environments, or interact with people from different cultures. Understanding this helps us avoid judging others based on a single moment or a single behavior. It reminds us that every person has many layers shaped by their cultural experiences. Identity development affects intercultural communication because it influences how comfortable we feel navigating different cultural spaces. The more flexible and aware we are of our own identities, the more effectively we can connect with people whose experiences differ from ours. To conclude, the components of the self-awareness, self-concept, and self-esteem, shape the way we interpret communication. Meanwhile, our personal, social, and cultural identities guide how we present ourselves and respond to others. And as our textbook reminds us, identity is always evolving, which means our communication is constantly evolving too. By understanding who we are, we become better at understanding others. And in today's multicultural world, that skill is not just useful, it's essential. Thanks.